Scoop, mate, what a bloody shock of a round overall. We had so many out, and then you got pretty unlucky, mate. I think I'm going to open the floor for a typical Jamie rant because I don't think we've had a Scoop rant yet. Your floor is yours.
Jamie, it was a week of what could go wrong, did go wrong, and 50-50 positions that should have been ones that could have gone differently. But yeah, I mean, Turbo Captain versus the Dragons, you would have thought, yeah, low floor for a wing fullback, but it's the Dragons. And then the Dragons proceeded to beat them, and Turbo dropped the ball 5 times. Not what you want to see when you've already got some expensive outside back. So it just makes it hard to get Ponga now. Like, I've got to fix the top of my team first. So that's probably the direction I'm going to go. Galvin suspended is annoying, so I'm probably going to go like Tupanua out to Kai Pierce Paul or something like that because he's on the bench now and just going to keep dropping cash.
Hmm.
At least Hutchison and Flanagan are sort of coming good. Hey, otherwise we'd be in real trouble.
Yeah, well, that helped out for you. The 40 from Flano, a bit of cash there. Levi as well. That bench doesn't look too bad, does it? It's the rest of the team that, apart from Fogs, really, that's and Terrell, that's in a bit of strife.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Levi dropped 5 points just before lockout,
Yeah.
and he still scored double what Lussick did. So Lussick's kind of, I don't know if it's double, triple, or quadruple bluff at this point because he's back with no hands on the bench again this week. I just don't know how to read it anymore. It's kind of crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, lots of problems in my team, and one of them that's opened up now that Moses is gone opens it up to Dylan Brown and Gutherson, but also really hurts Penasini. As I talked up a lot in the preseason, averages 46 with Moses and 28 without. And I mean, he started off with a lovely 24. So lots of things happening. I've got to decide what my second trade is this week before I get too far.
Yeah, well, I suppose you've already got a couple of eels, don't you? Is Blaze the first trade and oh sorry, KPP's the first trade. How much cash in the bank before that first one?
I have a bit. I think I have made the two so far. Yeah, I think it was about 180, 200, something like that.
Cool.
And my second trade that I'm currently sitting on is Piakura to Talagi, just because I need some cash, Jen. If you look at my team and squad value overall, it's under 10.9, and a
Okay.
lot of people are starting to tick towards 11 or just over now. I really need to get that going.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope like crazy that the forecasted crazy rain for the Dragons versus Newcastle game stops Ponga from getting 90.
Yeah, God. I'm worried for that. But again, look, Turbo had a shocker that game, so maybe yeah, Ponga can have a bit of a back down to earth game, but he's already had a lot of them, hasn't he? So yeah, just a tough overall. Hey, the Lussick one for you, Penasini, that game obviously hurt you
Yeah,
in that
Faraz
one.
getting
Yeah,
shifted to wing again with
again.
Adokar lasting 41 minutes again. Just, yeah, a lot that went wrong did go wrong,
And
and we've
holding
got to
Cleary, mate,
figure
as
out of
well.
that.
Like you've got that scenario where you're gonna obviously benefit coming into round seven when he comes back. But yeah, for now it's these
Mm,
kind of weeks when you get 100 less than people, just absolutely kills you. But yeah, we're looking at the sort of overall rankings. This is in the private group at 2871 you are. If you go 100 points ahead, 2971, that's almost half the ranking.
mm.
Another 100 from there and it's well into the top 1000, top bunch of ranks there. What do you say? 3801. Yeah, like that's 3300. So yeah, a couple of good scores in a row, and it's down into that top 5K, which is fine. But yeah, frustrating overall. And big shout out to Ash. He did lose some ranks. He was 15th overall now, down to 80th, mate. But what did you want to focus on this week? Is it the direct trade ins, maybe a little bit of a chat around who's hot, who's not here?
Yeah, probably the direct trade-ins a little bit because some of the guys who I've seen talked up a lot really aren't that high on that list. Like if you have a look down that list, Pong's not even on it. And I mean, he's got that potential Dragons matchup. You've got Kai Pierce Paul, who's not started cheap, but definitely outscoring his price point now, already up to 580. If he scores 50s, that's still pretty good value, but it's not like hundreds and hundreds of K potential like Galvin or maybe Talagi if he keeps that spot. So
Yep.
there's definitely guys on there who I'm surprised are as high as they are. And then a couple of others who probably should be more talked up as long as you don't have too many of that one team.
What's that team, mate?
The Eels, who did not play on Monday, and that game didn't exist. I'm sorry, it wasn't there.
What's cooked is that every single other player that anyone else had traded in killed it, and then now play. Yeah, just Lussick obviously, and he didn't go very well either. But yeah, it's a tough one. And sort of with the Eels, mate, obviously with their buy in round 9, if I'm correct, it's an interesting one. If you are going to go 3 or 4, it's one of those situations where you need to get rid of all the fat in your team and get rid of the guys that definitely aren't playing or aren't going to score well, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because you've also got the Raiders and the Bulldogs around that time. And especially for the Bulldogs guys, you probably don't want to hang on to them for too long. So you're going to need to really prepare your team and get rid of a lot of that deadwood, or you'll end up with another round 4 situation where you had 2 or 3 guys out plus a bunch of injuries, and
Yeah.
then we're struggling to field 17. It could be a real tough slog up to Origin if we're not careful.
Yeah, well, that makes me think about my squad there as well. Obviously, I think I got 5 Raiders now and 4 Dogs, and looking at potentially a Curran, which probably can't happen. But if Taylor May goes okay this week, then maybe Carraz is the trade out just to drop one of those. Yeah, if I want to get to a Hines or something, maybe he can be the one that goes. And I've only got one Panther, so maybe Taylor can be held and yeah, just kind of trimming a little bit of those round 8, 9, and 10 buys, which is interesting for sure. So Blaze, is he sort of the only real slam dunk trade in this week, and then it's kind of just working it out based on what your team setup needs? And are you looking towards potentially, thinking about around 13 where you have to field the starting 13 at the moment?
Yeah, it is very team dependent because there are very different teams out there.
Yeah.
Just have a look at some of the crazy differences in rank between different narratives. But yeah, if you need some cash gen in your team and you don't have a trillion other eels, Blaze Talagi is pretty much as safe as it gets. It's like Galvin, but maybe 5 points, 10 points difference sort of thing there. He's going to make a lot of money as long as he keeps that spot. And he should have that for about 2 months with Mitch Moses out, as long as he doesn't get dropped. A couple of people I've seen are a little bit worried about Arzi, but Arzi's been doing like mostly fullback related stuff
Yeah.
in Cup.
Yeah.
And so I'm not as worried about his job security as some others.
That's a good point, mate. Gutho, what are your thoughts on him? Obviously, you follow the Eels.
Gutherson always steps up and becomes more of an attacking focus in that team when the big playmakers are out, especially Mitch Moses. You take the Mitch Moses filter for both Dylan Brown and Gutherson, and when Mitch Moses isn't playing with them, both of them average 60. So Gutherson's dropped a little bit of money after those first few games. He's got goals, and they've got um, a bit of a nice run. Canberra's will be an interesting game, but they've let through a fair few points. So even
Yeah.
though might be a tough game from a winning perspective, might be close, I would expect it to be like 20 points aside at least. Then you
Yeah.
got Cows, who may or may not be good depending on who they play. Finns, Manly. So not the softest teams by any stretch, but teams that you can put points on, and that's good for fantasy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just obviously the first out of all 4 games that you did pick up a try, assist, and a try. But just watching their teammate, it's obviously the point step up from him and Brown is just ridiculous, and they just completely run the team. Hey, hands on the ball almost every play, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and they do, because Mitch Moses is such a dominant kicker, 80% of the kick meters. You look at that round 4, and he instantly goes over 100 kick meters when he did basically nothing before that. So Dylan Brown goes from 63 to 240 or something like that, and
He
Gutho
was.
goes up over 100 as well. So it's just massive increase in base and big increase in attacking role. So I mean, that's what we look for in fantasy.
Yeah, it was a pretty perfect game for him, wasn't it? Because he just didn't get any missed tackles either on the weekend. Brown and Gutho, everything was pretty well perfect for him as well. So you probably don't expect these terrific, exact numbers each week. But then he only had, the one line break and no tries or try assists. So if you can do it
Mhm.
just with a line break and some tackle breaks, then you'd expect it. Obviously, with their track record as well, it can happen, fairly regularly. Mate, what are your thoughts on the 2 different strategies we can go for here? There's the strategy of going for a Brown and a Fogarty in your halves position, not getting a Hines or a Cleary really at all until the back end of the year. There's obviously the captaincy issue there, but do you think it's a strategy that can be worthwhile? Because you come around 13, you're gonna have too many halves if you're trying to get a Hines or a Cleary too.
Yeah, it's a really interesting and awkward situation given that we're already trying to burn through a lot of our trades.
Yeah.
But yes, if you've got Fogarty with his truly enormous kicking base, like we saw Sean Johnson last year, we thought that was crazy. That was like a 91% kicking share. Fogarty's currently kicking at over 96%.
Ooh.
Nobody kicked for any meters of the last Raiders game. So Dylan Brown and Fogarty getting 60s, although you're not getting as many captaincy points. I mean, Hines and Cleary have not quite averaged as high this year as you'd probably would have expected. So there's definitely an argument to be made because their ceiling is not as high as Hines and Cleary for sure, but it might not be as far off as you think. And for what 200k difference after how much they've dropped at this point,
At
200
least, yeah.
300k difference, it's not a bad trade-off.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. They're at 61 and 63, I think, at the moment, the two of them, and
Mm.
that's probably the main worry is that they could seriously bounce back and get back to that 70 mark, and then it's 10 to 15 points difference. But I suppose if you are going to go for that strategy, who would you be if you don't have any of those two? Who would you be happy to captain on a weekly basis? Because like Isaiah Yo's, he's just over 900k too. So in that scenario, you're just getting one of those guys, that one of those halves, aren't you? And then it's like it's Carrigan, it's Fogs, it's Grant.
Yeah, I think just because that kicking base is so insanely high, I think I'd probably go Fogarty. I don't think he scored under 55 this year, and
No,
he's scored it's been between about 55 and 63 every
yeah,
single game. So that's going to be nice and reliable for you.
mm,
As long as there's not a game where the Raiders could get bashed, I think Fogarty's pretty good. Dylan Brown will be probably a little bit more up and down because he's got different stats across the board. So he won't get 700 kick meters even in a game where they get flattened. Um, he'll have a lower floor but a higher ceiling probably.
yeah, definitely. Mate, little interesting one. Aaron Clark he's someone I can't really put my finger on. Kind of what's going to happen in this. He's got an average of 30 minutes over the first three games that he's played. He obviously had the bye in round two. He's got the start this week. There's every chance he probably gets moved to the bench too, hey, in that final team list as well. But if he can get the big minutes, we know he can score well. What's your thoughts on that team at the moment?
I see him as somebody that I'm not even looking at until I see him get the role.
Yeah.
So Liu, I think's out with concussion. Palacia has a quad issue, so they might just come back in and he'll go back to a 30-minute role. But we saw at the back end of a couple of years ago where all of a sudden, instead of scoring 35, 40 at hooker, he was scoring 50s. And then he did it last year as well. We know that he's a much better scorer in that position. So if he did end up moving to that position at some point in the year, whether it's soon or later, he will be a pickup at his price.
That's fair. Who are your best guns to target this week? If you wanted to bring someone in and potentially captain them in any position, what are you looking at?
If you're looking at guns to bring in, and you aren't overstacked in center and wing fullback like me, I think it is a very good time and price to buy Ponga.
Yep.
He's dropped a little bit after that initial start, and he didn't even score that low. It's just that the Knights didn't look as good. But the last couple of games, especially last week, he just started to look like the back end of last year. Super dangerous Ponga was basically running their attack, doing everything. And yeah, you look at that, couple of try assists, lots of tackle breaks, a lot of meters, kicking a fair bit too, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
It just seems like he has the tools to be the top averaging wing fullback this year, and you're getting him at about a 50k discount to start.
definitely. What about, I think out of his, four line breaks, I think he's had three of them where he's just literally broken straight through, like hard and straight at two defenders, and he's just getting through them. So he's kind of just making it happen himself, which I
Yeah.
suppose in his team at the moment is what he needs to do. But how good's that run over the next month, a couple of months, eh?
It's very good. Like when you've got in the how many games? You've got 7 games, and one, two, three, four, 5 of them are against potential bottom 8, potentially lower teams.
Mm,
Like he could put he could put 380s in there.
yeah. You're making me think about him more and more, mate. He's someone that
Oh,
I can get. It maxes me out of cash. But yeah, it's an interesting one. So Ponga's number one. You said it sounds like you got Kai Pearce Paul a little bit lower on your sort of a priority list for you.
He's somebody who I don't think is going to make tons of money. He's sort of in the Lussick bracket for all what I thought Lussick was going to be, but safer
He's
than
doing it.
Lussick. Yeah, so I
Uh,
think personally, I think I'm getting Kai Pearce Paul in because I've just overstacked on wing fullback and went turbo instead of Ponga. Now I've probably got a, I've made my bed now. I've probably got a lie in it. But yeah,
yeah,
Ponga good. Kai Pearce Paul, I think, just can knock out you 50s. He can be a Tyson Frizzell at 580k, whatever he is now.
that's fair. Josh Curran, any thoughts?
Josh Curran, I find it really hard to read him. He's demanding those minutes. There's been things that have been happening in the games that have been given to him. And now he's moved to second row where he also scores very well. And you'd expect with those 6 weeks, he'll get 80 minutes, sorry. So I think he will score very well. It's just how much more will he go up? Um, for those 6 weeks, and then you may have to move him on. So Kai Pearce, I see Kai Pearce Paul and him as the same player for the next 6 weeks, but then after that, I like Kai Pearce Paul's prospects more than Curran.
That's fair. The other edges, mate, Eli Katoa and Nat Butcher. I'm looking at Nat fairly closely.
Yeah, well, he started off the bench to begin the year, and then they did all the swapping with Wong and Tupanua that wrecked our fantasy teams. But yeah, it dropped his price a little bit, and he topped the tackle average last year. And I mean, look what he did last week. What did he get? 65 tackles?
Yeah, yeah, gets 67 points, hardly makes any runs, but just tackled his heart out. So he's
Yeah.
an interesting fellow. When he plays over 60 minutes, it's 53. When he's up at he's 55 with over 70 minutes there. 53, I should say. Let's
Mm.
scratch that. Don't know where the 54.9. Oh, last year. Last year was 54.9 in those minutes. So pretty hectic at that. And I know it's an interesting one, hey, because it's like, well, they keep changing their edges, but do you think they're pretty settled on Nat Butcher right now as the Addy
I
guy?
think I was really surprised that they didn't have him as an 80-minute edge to begin the year, and now they think
Yeah.
that he's there, he'll stay there.
Mm.
I think they were looking to see what they were going to do with this situation with Wong, Tupanua, and Angus Crichton, and now we've seen Wong basically get left out of the team a few weeks in a row, not even in the reserves, that type of a thing, and now Tupanua's fallen down, so it might just be Nat Butcher is cemented there now that they figured out what they want to do with the other edge, and we'll see how the rest of it goes.
He's just interesting, eh? Like some games you just get 40 and then you get like 70. It's like, what? You're meant to be just like a base stat guy, and he's way different to that. Any thoughts on Angus, mate? Do you expect it to be 50 to 60 minutes as well, and we can just watch?
With Nat Butcher being the guy that we know he can be, just doesn't get tired, will play the 80 regularly if he needs to. I think Angus is going to play that sort of 50-minute, 60-minute Tupanua role to start off with. We've seen him be an absolute fantasy weapon in the past. I don't think you can trust that straight away, but at 437k instead of what 580k compared to some of these others, if he does manage to get say 60, 65 minutes and score I don't know, in the 40s somewhere, that's going to be pretty good value. But yeah, 52 break even essentially. You can wait a tiny bit and see what it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 40s next week, and then he can go on a bit of a run of, priced at, let's say he gets 40 next week, he'll be priced about 30. And then, yeah, there's plenty of value on that. Mate, any thoughts on Jacob Host under 400K?
Oh, don't.
Don't do
Don't
it.
go there again, please. I mean, there's a chance he'll crawl up 100k, but I don't want to. I don't want to think about it.
That's fair. I'm just going to throw Liam's team up here. He was asking me some questions as well. He's doing well at rank 676 in the private group there. He
Good
has
stuff.
traded Cleary, right? So in this
Mhm.
scenario, he probably is going to want to have one of Hines or Cleary. He doesn't have Brown yet. He's potentially looking at Brown, but if he doesn't do that, how would you set up this team? Are you looking to potentially move on some of these mid to high ranger guys? Like I mentioned, Karaz obviously is a guy you can move on. A Taylor May, if Lussix doesn't go well, he's got Harry Grant in the situation. He doesn't have Cotter, but like is Cotter a guy that you'd be happy to move on in the next few weeks because you were going to trade him out in 13 anyway? How are you thinking about that situation, and is that how people should think as well? Do you think?
It's you have to play fantasy by the way fantasy is supposed to be. You sell people when they're peaked, and you put out fires when they're dead. It's going to be a delicate balance as to when that tipping point of here we go, all of our cows are not necessarily cowboys, but all of our cash cows are starting to peak versus who is injured. So I think Connor will fall into that bracket in a couple of weeks, but I'm not really even thinking about him at the moment just because there's other stuff to worry about. And I mean, he'll get there and he's scoring better than most of the other players in my team at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, some people are like, oh, yeah, even myself, I was like, oh, look,
Yeah.
maybe I'll sell Murray in round 7, but like he's one of the only ones scoring well at the moment. Shout out to
Yeah.
my brother, in 10th, by the way. The old days when we were
Yeah.
the part of the Renegades crew, he's still kept his name the same since.
Yeah,
So
good stuff.
he's in
Yeah,
the
and look at that.
just outside the top 1,000. So this is the best start he's ever had, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah, good stuff. And Nigel up there too, second place from last year. He's had a real good start with a lot of other experienced players a bit down.
yeah, he ended up going pretty heavy with wing fullbacks and halves he's been talking to me about. So worked out well in the end, obviously being out of captain Hines. I think anyone that could captain Nico this week and got that score in a week where no one really went, clips that 70 mark. That was huge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In that one there. Yeah, so I suppose, yeah, the thoughts there, if someone is looking to get a Nico Hines next week, how do you free up that money? That's probably the question.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to how much dead wood do you have in your team, and do you have Zach Hosking sitting there with $250,000 there? Because if you have Zach Hosking sitting there, that's a path to Hines without blowing up your team. Otherwise, you might be forced into pushing out, let's say, yeah, a Lussick and a Karaz plus Bank to turn him into Nico Hines plus a really, really cheap guy. And you need a bit of luck and a lot of preparation to go on your side in order for that to work.
That's fair. Very fair. What do we got? Heath's team here, 710. I just suppose it's good to have a look at a couple of different squads and see where they're at. So he's obviously got Hines there already and has Grant to come back. A few injuries there, obviously, with Keeney being out, P. Chan. Yes, a lot of it's, and then Galvin as well. A lot of it's just trying to get 17 on the park, isn't it? I'm seeing a few people like, oh, do I trade so and so? Like, my head-to-head team
Yeah.
sitting there with Satilli, and if I hold him, I've got 17. If I trade him out, I'm only playing with 16. So it's pretty tough overall at the moment, isn't it? And that's where you said
Yeah.
cleaning up the deadwoods, the play, and you probably can't get every option you want, right?
Yeah, it's a really tough one. If you can field 17, you can start to think about those as well. Like your Tupinel or potentially for me, Panasini lost 30K last week because he had a
Yeah.
30 and a 24.
Hey, the Center
Do I
brothers, me,
go
you,
for
and
them?
Taylor May.
Yeah, it's good stuff at the moment.
Ugh.
Hey, all these guys who are supposed to be guns.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so I think it's really going to come down to who do you have? Do you have enough to play 17? Um, and then make that decision as to trade out the guys who are not playing versus going to lose your money.
Mm, yeah. God, it's a weird week, eh? Another one, obviously less carnage, but right, which is good. It's really like the Hosking head knock, and then we're all just kind of just dealing with the red dots from last week. Obviously with Chan, yeah, some people still have Wong in their side. I've seen the Keenies, the two piggies that are still sitting in there, and then like even Cleary, like can you hold him for another couple of weeks? Can you hold Pia Kura for another couple of weeks? I'm seeing like Pia Kura is one of the highly traded out guys for the week, which yeah, which is pretty interesting, that one as well. What do you think on that one? Is he, worth the hold for? Let's just say he's out for 2 more weeks, round 5 and 6, back round 7. Is that just worth the hold at his price?
It's a hard one because usually somebody's out for more than about 3 weeks is probably the very borderline you'd go when he's out for potentially that month. It made sense to sell given that he hadn't got a negative break even. It was going to take a long time and it's eating a spot up in your team. But when he does return, he's still got that potential. He's still got that expected time and points that he'll make you money. It's just how much is that costing you? And you've got to try and work out whether that's enough. For me, because I've got a lot of people who are sitting there not doing anything for my team, he's somebody that works for me to trade out, especially given that I'm holding Cleary at this stage.
Hmm.
That's how that's probably going to work out for me.
That's fair. Is there a world where you can hold Zach Hosking if you own him and like keep
Ah,
him for next week? Like if you say Whitehead's still out, or he can get
I
80 minutes.
I th I think there's potential, especially if you're looking to flick him to Nico Hines and you've sold Cleary. So if you've got both Hosking and Cleary, that's way too much money because you can have others as well.
Right. Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
if you've got Hosking sitting there and you don't have another gun half and you think I need a way to do this, there could be a way. And if it turns out that I have to sell him, good, I can switch him. And if I don't, good, he'll pretty much be my captaincy option anyway because he's just such a gun.
Yeah, it's fair. He's very expensive now, isn't he? The break even's not going to be too high for next week, which is fine at all. Mate, any tip of the week from Scoop, or are we just kind of sitting and hoping for a bigger week? He didn't really blow up, by the way. He didn't really rant at the start, so I think the fans will
More
be
just
upset with that.
deflated, mate. Sam Hughes, please play more than 14 minutes. You've got injuries. Play 35 minutes and get me 40 points like Phil Gould promised.
Exactly. Are you going to have 17 or 18?
I'm let me have a look. I'm gonna have 18 and I'm gonna be deciding whether to play probably Burbo, Levi, or even like Hughes, something like that.
Actually, that's a good thing to go through. Back to your team where it is.
Yeah.
Sadly, I found it. Sadly, it's so low. Poor fella. But out of those guys, so we got, let's say, Burbo, Levi, Strange, Flanny, and Tupanua. There you go. There's your and Hughes. There you go. There's five of them. Order them 1 to 5 from who you'd play first to last.
Who's
Hughes,
that? Sorry,
Tupanua,
Levi, Hughes.
Strange, Levi, and Burbo.
Oh.
And this will finish up the video.
I'd probably put Flanagan at the top, hey.
Oh yeah, go Flano.
And look, if there's a good chance Tupino still gets a good, decent minute roll, he might move more into the middle, but I don't think it's going to be as big as before. So maybe him two, him and Strange two, and then I don't know. I
And
want
Levi.
to say Hughes will be higher, but I'm afraid he could be at the bottom.
Okay. So Strange over Levi for you then? Because that's one I've been asked a bit of.
I think so, probably. It's just Levi will score a try and go from 13 in 45 minutes to 30. Uh, so it's kind of funny at this point.
Yeah,
Levi
that's
top
cool.
try scorer for 2024.
Yeah. How good is he? 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, what is he tied? I think he's in like 6 or 7 position to someone with 4. But I might have Tupanua last. I'm not sure. I just feel like what is he gonna get 20 or 30 minutes? That's kind of the thing. And then
Yeah.
Hughes could actually have a blinder. Let's pray for a Sammy Hughes blinder, hey? And
Yep.
then yeah, Strange has
30
got
point
2 good
increase.
scores, doesn't he? Levi kind of one
Yeah.
good score. So that's
Yeah.
probably yeah, I'm happy with that one. You've got a chance of going low, like more chance of going low, but more chance of going high, I'd say, than Levi.
Yes.
Flanagan's been good. Yeah.
Tupino is incredibly hard to read. Like it's going to be lower, but how much lower? If he just comes on at the edge, he will score what Sam Hughes did this week. But if he does more, goes into the middle a bit because he can do that and has done that a decent amount in the past,
Yeah.
then I'd probably put him at like 25 points or something.
Yeah, which is pretty solid. Would you have Burbo behind Strange and Levi?
I'd have him behind.
Sandwiched in between,
See,
maybe.
I don't know what his minute situation is going to be because it keeps
Yeah.
getting less and less. 49 minutes. It's not fun when he's also had a low score that has been. So honestly, there's a good chance Burbo is below both of them, but I'd maybe split the difference, put Strange first, Burbo second, Levi third.
Okay.
It's it's
Yep.
it's real hard to pick those three.
Yeah. Well, it's probably like in that scenario, it's like, do you just go for the guy that has most boom potential? Which
I think
I don't
so,
know. Is it Strange? Yeah, probably.
probably.
Um, he's up against Talangi, so I think, yeah. So that might be okay. Penasini though, he
It,
missed 5 tackles on the weekend. Maybe Strange can get like 5 tackle breaks. That was wild. How's he missing 5? He's usually like 20 and 1, 20
it,
and 0.
it's crazy, hey, because we look at Penasini and I think last year he had the highest base, as in run meters and tackles, of any center except for Gagai.
Yeah, Gaga's
And
fire.
it does not help when he's losing 10 of those to missed tackles. But yeah, he got a decent amount of ball, surprisingly. It was just not amazing ball, and then he missed his assignment as well. So
Mm,
really needs to step up this week. I have a lot of hope that he can go for a boom game, but he could score 15 or 15. I just genuinely don't know which.
that's fair. You're not captaining Turbo against Panthers this week?
Oh no, got to double down. Gotta nah. I'm probably gonna go Fogarty. You got a bit chastened by that. I wanted to bring in Ponga and double down against the Dragons, but then it was wet, and I got too many wing fullbacks anyway. So
Oh
probably
yeah,
Fogarty for me.
Panasini, Carraz, Turbo, Pap. You probably capped out, aren't you? Which is
Yeah,
fair. Mid or an edge. Yeah, it's fair play for you. All right, I think that might do us, mate. Thanks for jumping on. Obviously a little bit early
have a good one.
for us tonight. We'll still
Yeah.
pump this out in the morning and condensed week. Are you just happy that you can kind of one less day you had to think about your team with your
Oh,
games ending on
that it
Monday?
was actually pretty good, hey, because it's like less wondering and worrying. But yeah, so let's cross our fingers and hope that somehow it's a good scoring week and we can actually crack 800 this week or something insane. That'd
Have
be
you
a
got
good
800
success.
yet?
Uh,
I don't even
I
know.
don't think so. I think I got
Surely.
like a 780 in that in one
What
of
are
the
we
weeks.
averaging? 717 over
Yeah,
4. Yeah, maybe. 780s,
yeah,
614. Yeah, wow. Okay, that's
yeah.
yuck.
Nah, go for gold. 900 this week.
Oh, I got the 800 one. That yeah, okay. My only good week. That's where I made up all my ranks in last round, round 3.
Yep.
Yeah. 800 something. The rest have been way low. Good
Yeah.
times, good times, good times. This is the week, guys. This is the week. Thanks again for tuning into all these. The next videos that will be coming out will be our trades for Supercoach and Fantasy. Shout out to Scoop. He
Sounds
actually had a
good.
good Supercoach week. He's ahead of me in that.
Let's
Um,
go hammer.
Up the hammer. There you go. How good is he going? There you go. See you
Yeah.
guys.